Good evening, everybody. So glad you joined us for our Sunday evening Bible study. We're going through the book of 1 Timothy. And just to get us back into the contextual flow of everything that we've been doing, we want to remember Paul is writing to the young preacher Timothy. Timothy would have been a protege to the Apostle Paul, and Paul would be a mentor relationship with Timothy, and he's encouraging Timothy. Timothy is working with the congregation at Ephesus right now, and there are some issues there, specifically with some Judaizing teachers causing some problems, and so Paul is writing to encourage him to stand strong, always stand up for the gospel, and to stand up for the truth and protect the truth, and that's how he starts out this letter. But then he begins to talk about how the worship service in particular is to look and how it is to go and how it needs to be ordered. And so he begins in chapter 2 to look at some things in regard to the men's role, specifically in regard to prayer, and then the women's role. And then now in chapter 3, we've begun to look at the organization of the congregation itself, how there needs to be elders. And last week we spent our time looking at the characteristics and the traits that the qualifications that the elders have to have if they're going to lead the congregation. And this week we're going to, I believe, finish out this chapter by looking at the qualifications of deacons. And so we're going to look at chapter 3 of 1 Timothy chapter 3, and we're in verses 8 through 13. So as we've been doing, let's get our Bibles out and let's read together, and then we'll make some comments on the text and see if we can understand who the deacons are. What is this office of deacon all about? And who can be a deacon? So let's read together chapter 3 of 1 Timothy chapter 3, beginning in verse 8. Paul writes, "Likewise, deacons must be reverent, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy for money, holding the mystery of the faith with a pure conscience. But let these also first be tested. Then let them serve as deacons, being found blameless. Likewise, their wives must be reverent, not slanderers, temperate, faithful in all things. Let deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their own houses well. For those who have served well as deacons obtained for themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith which is in Christ Jesus." Kind of a short paragraph there, and we're going to cut it off there for tonight as we look at these qualifications. And we want to make sure that we understand what these qualifications mean in regard to those who want to serve as a deacon. First of all, we can put all these we can put all these qualifications into several different categories, and that's how we're going to look at them this evening. Just like we did with the eldership last week, we want to make sure that we cover each one, and so I think this is the best way to kind of have them thematically arranged. It tends to be a little bit of more help. So we can look at these categories and we see that we have some negative things. Here's some things that the deacons are not to be. So we have negative characteristics or qualifications. Then we have some positive qualifications. And then we see that there are some domestic qualifications that must be in place for a man to serve in the office of a deacon. Okay, so let's look, beginning with the negative character traits. These are things that you want to avoid. And I just want to say, we look specifically at the qualifications of elders, qualifications of deacons. Most of these, I would suggest to everyone, this is what we need to strive to be as Christians on most of these. And now there are some that are specific just for the office, but when we look at the majority of these are things that should be in the Christian's life anyway. But look at these negative characteristics. How are you not supposed to be? Verse 8, we find the first one. It says, not double-tongued. And in the original, this is a phrase in the original. It means not saying the same thing twice. Now, on the surface, it may seem like, okay, you're talking about being repetitive. Someone that doesn't say the same thing twice is someone who's repetitive. But the idea is, and the picture that's being drawn is, okay, here's Brother Smith over here. And so I'm going to say one thing to Brother Smith. I just really like that this is being done and this is being done, and I think this is a wonderful thing. Okay, well, here's Brother Williams over here, and I say, you know what? I really don't like that. And I really don't like this, and I don't like... All of a sudden, I'm being positive about something, and about the same thing, I'm being negative with someone else. It's the idea of speaking out of both sides of your mouth, sometimes we like to say, right? I don't... this is emphasizing the idea of integrity. Integrity. When we have integrity, it helps us throughout life. It enhances our relationship to God. And we all need to be striving to be people of integrity. That is, this is my view. I'm going to be honest about my view, and I'm not going to change my view based on who I'm talking to. That's hypocritical. No, this is about integrity, not double-tongued. And so the man who wants to be a deacon needs to make sure that he has a character of integrity. He is... what you see is what you get, in other words. You're not one thing to one person and another thing to someone else, and you're not saying this to one and this to someone else, or smiling at someone and then stabbing them in the back over here. No. That's the idea of being double-tongued. Deacon cannot be double-tongued. And that makes sense, doesn't it? As one who is a servant, and that's what the word deacon literally means. It means a servant. And they're working under the authority of an eldership in a specific area. And that means they're going to be working directly with members of the congregation, organizing this specific area of work to help the cause of Christ move forward. And you do not want someone who is dishonest, who has no integrity, or who will smile at your face and stab you in the back, dealing with people in the congregation in any type of work, any type of manner, any type of job that needs to be done within the church. So you need individuals of integrity, not double-tongued. Now, the second negative we find in verse 8 as well, and this one tends to trip us up, but it only trips us up when we're looking for a loophole. And that's this one, not given to much wine. Now, when we go back up and look at the qualifications of an elder, it says in verse 3, elders can't be given, they're not to be given to wine. And that literally means a friend to wine. That is, you don't saddle up right against, you don't come down and sit on the pew with a bottle of wine. The idea is, you're not under the influence. It doesn't have control over you. Now, we see that, and we understand that to be a prohibition in regards to drinking for an elder. But then we come down here and we want to look, and again, we're looking for a loophole when we begin to think like this. And it says, not given to much. Well, that word much, that means I can have a little. And the English may imply that, if we really want to force that. But what we see in the original language is something a little bit different. The word given means to pay attention or to apply oneself. And so the deacon is not to apply oneself or hisself to alcohol. Now, the term much means plenteous. And so the idea is you're not applying yourself to plenty of alcohol. And again, it's saying the exact same thing in simply a different arrangement and in a different way. You are not to be a friend to alcohol. Just like an elder must abstain and not be under the control of any alcohol, the same with a deacon. And when you look in God's Word and you see all of the dangers of alcohol, all of the warnings against alcohol and to abstain from alcohol, it causes this. Look in the book of Proverbs. Look at Nadab and Abihu. That's a crazy story where they decide they're going to offer strange fire. You remember this, and they're struck down. And right after that, before it continues the story, there's this prohibition of alcohol. And the implication is that they weren't sober when they made that decision, and it cost them their life. Alcohol is dangerous, and we understand that. We see what it does to families. We see what it does to individuals. And so this is a prohibition for the deaconry, just as it is for the eldership. Not given to wine, not given to much wine. It's the idea of not being a friend of alcohol and not being under the control of alcohol. And so, we can try and look for that loophole and see this in the English. It's simply not there, though. It's simply not there. And you ask anyone who has had to deal with the demons of alcoholism, and they will tell you very freely, just stay away. It's dangerous. And so we have the negative character traits, if you will, for the deacons. And there's one more, and this one is found again in verse 8. A deacon cannot be greedy for money. The New American Standard says fond of sordid gain. King James has, I think, the most colorful of them all. It says not greedy for filthy lucre. I think we all understand what this means. The idea of being greedy, money controls you. And again, when you think of this, you think all of this has to do with not being under control. All three of these traits. When we're talking about integrity and not being double-tongued, usually you're double-tongued because you're trying to get the favor of the people, so you're being controlled by people around you instead of being under submission to God. You don't want to be controlled by substances. In this case, alcohol. You don't want to be under the control of materialism or money. Those are not to be your driving factors as one who is a servant of the eldership, a deacon, holding the office of a deacon. So not greedy for money. And this isn't making a living. This isn't talking about, of course, being well off and having a good business sense and you've made a nice, comfortable living for yourself. That's not being greedy for money. This is the idea of having money control you. This goes back to what Paul would say, the love of money is the root of all evil. You're not to love money. And this would be very, very important, holding any kind of office of leadership, because all of a sudden, you're not being true to your office, are you? All of a sudden, you could be bribed. You could cheat people and thereby give a black eye to the church in regards to the congregation and to the community itself. And so, not greedy for money. You're not to live in a questionable manner where money is controlling you and forcing your movement. So those are the negative traits, and there's three. There's three positive traits as well. And these are very, very interesting. It says being reverent in verse 8. Reverent. This is literally a man of dignity. It's how you control yourself. It's what your character is. And really, it would go back, and you could connect it even as the opposite of being double-tongued. This is a man of integrity, of decency, of dignity. He holds himself in a dignified manner. He's not going to make a fool out of himself because of character traits that would cause him to. He's reverent. He has dignity. He's serious-minded when it comes to the job that he has. He's not going to do anything halfway. Sometimes we don't want to do a job, and so we'll just hem-haw or we'll do it halfway. Yeah, I remember in school not wanting to read a book, and so back in my day, I don't think they're around anymore, but you would go into the bookstore and let's say you had to read Romeo and Juliet, and well, you could go into the bookstore and for $10, $15, you could buy this little thin pamphlet. It was yellow and black, and it was Cliff Notes. And they would tell you about the themes of the book. They would tell you the plot of the book, the different characters of the book, and it would prepare you for any kind of exam or discussion you were to have. And you're reading 20 pages instead of 100, 150, 200 pages. And because, hey, that's doing things halfway. That's not being dignified in this sense. No, this is putting your mind to the work and doing it to the best of your ability because you're sober-minded. You're serious-minded when it comes to the responsibilities that you have. So that's the idea of being reverent in this case. The second positive trait we see in verse 10. He says they must first be tested. King James uses the word proved here. This is the idea of examining or approving of someone or something. This isn't a formal examination per se. You're not sitting down and having to take a 200 question essay test about this stuff. No. This is in reference to the faith. Do you have the experience to make godly decisions in a specific area in which you are going to serve? Also, do you have experience in that area that you can make informed decisions in the area that you are to serve? And I'll give you, for instance, let's say you're going to put someone in charge of technology. Well, you want to make sure that they have a background in technology, in networking, and how electrical systems work, in how computers work, at least a fundamental knowledge. You don't want someone who's never touched a keyboard, never touched a computer, and never used a smartphone in charge of your technology. No, he needs to be tested or proved in that area. If you have a man who's in charge of maintenance, you want to make sure that they can repair things and they know a little bit about repairing things. That's on one side of this. On the other side of this is the spiritual side. And you want to make sure you have a man who is one who is spiritually tested. That means you have some experience. You're not a brand new Christian. You have some experience and maturity as a Christian. And so a situation may arise and it falls under technology, and you have the skills to deal with that. And you may end up having to deal with a spiritual problem with someone in doing so, and you're going to handle that in a godly way as well. And so this is kind of a two-pronged thing. This is a reference to your faith in God and being willing to use your skills and background in whatever capacity is needed for the benefit of the congregation. And so that's the idea of being tested or proved. And then the last positive we find in verse 10. He's to be blameless. Now notice this is the same as in the eldership. And we talked a little bit at length last week about this idea of being blameless. The New American Standard says being beyond reproach. And the idea, again, is that you have a good reputation with people. And you live your life in such a way that if someone with a grudge wanting to hurt you makes an accusation, you live your life in such a way that everybody around you who knows you knows, well, that's just not true. That's just not true. You live your life so that you cannot be blamed or you cannot be slandered with sinful accusations, is the idea. So third and finally, as we wrap up tonight, let's look at the domestic responsibilities. And these we find in verse 12. He says, let the deacons be the husbands of one wife. Now, there's some implications right off the top before we get into the one wife issue. And again, we talked at length about that in our last video last week in regards to the elders. The first implication is, if I'm the husband of one wife, first of all, I'm a male. A male is the one who is to hold the office of a deacon. I am married, and so I have a wife. And then he says, I must be married, according to this, to one, scripturally married to one wife. Again, we have the arguments, and you know what? Usually you don't hear that argument of, well, he's been divorced, and I know it's a scriptural divorce, and he's scripturally married now, but he's been married twice, because, you don't hear that about this. You normally only hear that about the eldership. But we dealt with that last week, and again, I'll say, when a man's wife dies and he remarries scripturally, he's qualified to be a deacon, just as if he's qualified to be an elder. He's married to one wife. He's not connected by marriage to that dead wife any longer. If a man is divorced, the innocent party of a divorce, and he marries another woman who has a scriptural rights to marry, he's qualified for this office, just like he's qualified for the office of an elder. This it's amazing to me that even though the qualification is exactly the same here, we usually don't hear this argument about the deacons, but we hear it a whole lot about the eldership. And we need to be very, very careful with this. We need to understand God's laws of marriage and what is permittable in regards to divorce and remarriage. A man who is scripturally divorced and married scripturally to another is the husband of one wife. He is no longer married to the adulterous woman he had been married to. The widower who is scripturally remarried is a husband of one wife. He's no longer married to the woman who has passed away. That's why we say in our wedding ceremonies, till death do us part. Because that is when a marriage bond is severed. So we need to understand that, and we need to understand it in regards to these qualifications especially. Also, he needs to rule their children in their own house as well, verse 12. Now, again, we mentioned children. This doesn't mean, and again, you know what? You never hear, well, he only has one child. That's not children. That's plural. You never hear that about the deaconry. You hear that about the eldership, but you never hear that about this. Again, this is a general term, and we understand if we looked out in an audience and said, and again, we've got to just use some just common knowledge here. If someone asks, do you have children? You're not going to say, no, I have a child. Not unless you're an extreme grammar Nazi. That's not how this is being used here, okay? Do you have children? Yes, I have a son age such and such. Well, no, that's just one. You don't have children. You're lying to me. No. We understand how we use this term in the plural. It can mean a plurality. It can mean one. It means, do you have offspring? Do you have offspring? And notice, in regards to the deacons, they rule, and that is to lead. This isn't ruling by an iron hammer and boom, 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 you're going to do what I say or else. No. This is talking about leading. That's the word translated rule here. It's to lead. Do you lead your children well? Do you lead your house well? Do they have loyalty to you because of your leadership? Do they follow you because of your leadership, or are they in rebellion to God, rebellion to you? What's the deal? This is how you handle your household. Because as a deacon, you're going to be managing a work of the church under the oversight of an eldership, and if you can't manage your own household, how can you manage a work in regards to the family of God, God's household? And so it's the same, very similar idea. It has to do with loyalty. It has to do with their willingness to follow your lead. And if you're leading well, if you're leading in a scriptural, biblical manner, then yes, they will follow your lead. Now, what's interesting here is that there are some qualifications for the deacons' wives as well. That makes this interesting. He says in verse 11, likewise, their wives must be reverent, not slanderers, temperate and faithful in all things. Wives must be reverent. And again, that's the same idea. It's the same idea of having dignity. They're serious-minded in regards to the work of the church. It doesn't mean you never have fun and you never goof off or laugh or anything. No. It means you act with dignity in regards to matters, especially spiritual matters. And so the wives have to be reverent and dignified, just like the one who is going to hold the office of a deacon. Not a slanderer. This has to do with malicious gossip. Hey, I'm going to be the center of attention because I know something you don't know. Gossip. We don't like gossips. We don't like to be gossiped about. I think more of us are more tolerant of receiving the gossip, unfortunately, but the wife of a deacon is not to be a gossip. He's going to be privy to information, just like the elders would be privy to information, by the way. And the wife may learn of it. And so she needs to be one who knows how to control her tongue. He also says, and so she doesn't go around seeking to slander people and gossip about people. And that's going to require temperance. And the word temperance is simply self-control. Can you control yourself in matters? There may be some emotional things that happen in regard to holding these offices. And you know what? You need to be one who can control yourself, control your temper and your anger, control your tongue, and not say things that just pop up in your head. We all know of those individuals who just talk and they have no filter, we'll say, and sometimes we say it jokingly, but you can't be that. You have to be temperate. You have to be in control of yourself, and ultimately faithful and trustworthy is the last thing they say in regards to the wife of a deacon. Faithful in all things, trustworthy. And so there you go. It's the qualifications for being a deacon. And most of them, like I said, just like in the eldership, the majority of these, we all need to strive to have these characteristics. We all need to be reverent and people of dignity. We all need to live a life that's blameless. We all need to stay away from substances that can gain control over us, such as alcohol. We all need to not be hypocritical in how we speak, and be people of integrity and not double-tongued. I mean, these are qualifications we all need to strive for as Christians. But in regard to the offices of elders, the offices of deacons in particular tonight, we need to have these things mastered. And even though I'm not going to be perfect in doing it, in any of these things, no one's going to be absolutely perfect, but we need to strive for that and have a reputation for that. And all right. So there you have it, the qualifications for the deacons. We appreciate you joining us tonight. I know tonight's class is a little shorter than normal. I want to apologize for all of the issues we've been having of late in regard to our Wi-Fi service. For some reason, one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if this is the legit cause, but it's a pattern I'm starting to pick up. When there is rain in the area, when I got up, and it was very early when I got up, and made my way to the office, it was raining. It was raining fairly steady. And all of our fiber optic lines that go to the building are underground. And I've noticed that when it rains significantly to where the ground will be wet for a while, it seems like it slows down our internet signal. So that may have been a reason for it. We're trying our best to troubleshoot it, but quite frankly, I don't think, from what I can find, that it's our problem in the building. I think it has to do with the provider. But we do apologize. I know it's so jarring to be going through worship and then boom, it just stops like it did this morning. I hate that. It's jarring for me because I start getting notifications on my app that controls the camera. The camera starts blinking at me and I'm trying to restart it as I'm trying to preach, and it's distracting, and it just really, I hate it. I hate it especially because I know there are some who are depending on it to help them in their worship service, and we do apologize for it. We are trying our best to keep everything up and running during this time, and I'm hoping, especially now that there's a vaccine, that we can put all of this behind us and start worshiping live together, all of us. We had a good number this morning. We had 37, and I can't wait till I look out and see all 65, 70 of us gathered together again. That will be fantastic. And I know that those who are having to stay away can't wait to get back and see their church family as well. We miss you. I know you miss us. And I'm thankful that at least we have this to where we can stay connected in some way. But again, and when it doesn't work, it just breaks my heart. And I know it disappoints you guys, and I'm very sorry. We are trying our best to keep everything working as best as possible. But sometimes we're dependent on that provider, and sometimes that provider will let us down. Unintentionally, of course, I'm sure, but that does happen, and we apologize for it. I hope you'll make your plans to either watch us online or be with us live Wednesday night as we're studying the book of Daniel. And man, I have so enjoyed this study. If you haven't been watching, go back. All the videos are online. Go back and pick them up. It's been a fascinating study, and it is such a relevant study for our times. Learning as one of God's people how to live in a hostile government, how to live in a world that's hostile to your beliefs. It's just been an amazing study. I'm learning a lot, especially in putting it in its historical background, and it's been a lot of fun. And I hope y'all are enjoying it as well. And that's going to be Wednesday night at 7. And if you can make it to the building, we'd love to see you here. If not, join us online. I think you'll benefit from it. Also, don't forget Sunday morning, 10 a.m. We're planning on worshiping together. And like I said, we had a great crowd today, and that was so encouraging. I hate that the stream got interrupted, but it's just one of those things that happens, and we're trying to avoid that situation, obviously, but sometimes it's just unavoidable. But if you can make it out, come out and worship with us. If not, tune in to our YouTube channel or our website, and hopefully the stream will be working well next week. And of course, next Sunday night, we're going to continue on in 1 Timothy. And I think the plan is for Sunday night, we're going to look at 1 Timothy, then go into 2 Timothy, and then go into Titus. And so that's kind of the game plan there. They're called the pastoral epistles, but it's in reference to preachers and teachers and church leaders, and there's a lot of good things that we all need to understand that Paul has to say. All right, I hope everyone has a good week. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're enjoying these lessons. If you want, if you can think of a particular study that you would like to get into, drop me a message. I would love some ideas. We've been doing some textual studies, and they have been of a huge benefit for me, hopefully for you too. But if there's something that you would like to study, a book maybe that we haven't covered or we haven't covered in a while, let me know, and we can go through and maybe put that on the list of subjects to cover. I would love to do that for you. Nevertheless, I hope everybody has a good week, and I hope we can see you Wednesday night, 7 o'clock.